Raging Granny is the first segment of the 27th episode of the first season of Looney Tunes cartoons, and this one is okay, but it definitely got very repetitive. There was one point where it looked like we would have a slight change of location, the backdrop changed, but it was only short-lived. So there'll be spoilers as I discuss what happens in this. There isn't actually a tremendous amount to discuss because there's not a lot of variety in it, but I'll go into some detail. Basically, it starts off rather adorably with Granny and Tweety having a conversation, and Granny tells Tweety that she used to be a former boxer, a former boxing champion, and she still remembers a lot of the moves, and that they're so ingrained in her that whenever she hears the bell, as in the ding-ding of the fight, she launches into the boxing moves, and she could even do it in her sleep. And Tweety gets an idea with this. Granny then falls asleep in the armchair. It is a lovely scene, but we spend far too much time in this one location. And Sylvester comes along, of course, trying to capture Tweety while Granny is asleep. And Tweety dings the bell in his birdcage. And as she had already explained, Granny launches into boxing in her sleep, and she's basically punching the living daylights out of Sylvester. I will say something about this, even though it is very repetitive. We basically have Granny punching Sylvester for about 5 minutes. There isn't a lot of variety here. But Sylvester's facial expressions, or the way his face is animated, it's very creative, and that does change quite a bit. And I thought that was very well done. But the room itself, it's quite basically animated. It's very simple. There's not a lot of fuss, which I like. That is something I enjoy. But it became really stale and really boring, and as I said, we do at one point have a slight change in backdrop when Sylvester is elsewhere hatching a plan to try and fix this situation so that he can get Tweety without Granny launching into punching him. And it seemed like we were maybe going to mix things up a little bit, but that was only a few seconds. We're then back in the room again. So I feel like, I know it's only 5 minutes, but to be staring at the same backdrop pretty much is getting a little bit boring, especially as Granny is just punching Sylvester again and again and again. There's not a lot of variety there. So it's maybe not the most engaging, but it is an interesting concept, and to begin with, I felt like it was well executed. But it definitely did become a little bit too repetitive after maybe about the halfway mark. At one point, I did wonder how Tweety would get out of a potentially difficult situation. I know I said spoilers, I won't give away what does happen, but it does look like Sylvester might be able to get Tweety. And I was not 100% sure how they resolve that. So that bit was interesting. I guess the beginning's interesting, the end is interesting. The bulk of the middle, once we get used to the concept, is very repetitive. But Sylvester's face is brilliant throughout it. So it's okay. It's not bad. I think it could have been better. But Raging Granny was ultimately not a bad segment for Looney Tunes cartoons.